Hey guys, and welcome back. As you can see by the video, I'll get the elephant out of the room first, shall I? It was a silly accident I had out in the backyard, and that I wasn't concentrating on what I was doing, and I was swinging a sledgehammer. It got caught in the overhead retractable clothesline, and on the downswing the clothesline came adrift at one end and come and clouted me up the side of the head. And what it did was cut 2/3 of the top of the way through the top of my ear. It's all stitched back on now, but I'm going to have it bandaged up for about 4 or 5 days before I can get the bandages off, and it's dissolving stitches too, which is good. So I thought I'd let you know to start with, so you can actually see why I've got this white thing. No, I'm not trying to change religions or trying it out, as some of you might suspect. It is medical. So anyway, we'll get back to what I'm here to talk about. Alright, shall we? I'll just zoom you down. So, what I have is this box. And this box is the reason I'm doing this video. Now, for some time I've wanted to do SMD work, but me and small components and everything going towards surface mounting now, I don't have the dexterity to do that, and I don't have the eyesight to do that. So I wanted to get into surface mount soldering. I had a look around and I looked at one of those units you can get off, not eBay, but yeah, on eBay, AliExpress, Temu, places like that. And they were quite small, you know, they were only a really probably 50 by 50, well, if you're lucky, 50 by 50 mil for the cheap ones. And I looked at it and thought, well, for the price, it's quite expensive. So I thought I'd look around and see what's around in the open source area. And there's lots of guys using toaster ovens and irons. They're using the elements out of irons and things like that. To do it properly, it's done in an infrared oven. That's basically how they do them, and it heats the board from both sides. I was looking at something and I came across this chappie who went through the same thing I did. And he developed the board, and that's what's in here. Now I had a look at it, and the board itself was a surface mount board, a lot of the components, and I thought, well, rather than mucking around and seeing if I could solder it up and get it working properly, I just went to PCBWay, put the Gerbers up, got them to check it, and it was all checked fine, and did a price comparison between them and JL PCB. Now, the difference being is that PCBWay had all the parts in stock and would do it straight away. JL PCB, I find, a lot of their stuff is they don't have some of the components. You've got to go away, you've got to buy them from other people's stock or other vendors' stock first, then get it to come back, then finish your order off with them, and then they'll do it. And it's like, it's a lot of dicking around. So I just went with PCBWay, and that was all done. I mean, I don't know why JL PCB just don't do, okay, we can get it from this client, they have it, put this onto your parts list, debit it off the other person's part lists, add it to your price, and away you go. This is the total, pay it. Yep, we'll pay it and it's done. And that's it. So, I don't know. It's just nuts. They do at times are cheaper than PCBWay, but only when they've got all the bits there and it's not no dicking around. So anyway, so I got all these done. Now I got 5 of the boards made up because your minimum's 5, and I put a post up the other day on our forum on Facebook, and they're all gone because I kept 1. I thought I want 1, maybe 2, and then that was it. The whole lot were gone within about an hour or so. So anyway, they worked out for these units. And these are 50mm by 70mm hot plates, and for these units, including freight to New Zealand and that, they worked out to about $38 each. And I thought, well, that's cheaper than buying one of those cheapo little wee 40 by 40mm units. Now I would like to go bigger again. If I'm going to go bigger than this again, I thought this is cheap to start with to see if it's something I want to do. For $38, the only thing you've got to add is your own power supply, and it's 12 volts, 5 amps or more. But even if this lasts 6 months, 12 months, I'll know whether it's something I'm going to use a lot more of, And if it is, then I can look at getting a proper heat plate and making one that'll run off a proper hot plate for me, or heat plate for me. That's what I'm thinking on. What I'm going to be doing is these have the 80 mega on them, the 328 processor on them. We've got to program these chips, and so to do that, there is actually a ISP header on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Nano, and I've got a couple of those that I got through Temu, and I'm going to program up a Nano as an ISP because I don't have an ISP programmer. And I thought, this is a good thing to see if the Nanos work, and what a good thing to put the Nano to, because you can always reflash it and use it for something else. What I'm going to do is, I've got the Nanos here, the two of them. Now they came with header pins. Why they come with header pins, and they have the females, sorry, the cat's here annoying me, and they've got the females in them, I don't know. It's a bit crazy, but never mind. They'll go into my box. I've got some ribbon cable, and my JST connectors, or my DuPont connectors, crimpers, cutters, and pliers. What I've got to do is I've got to make up an ISP cable, which I'm going to make. So we'll go through that. And then I'm going to take you through flashing this as an ISP programmer. I've looked on the net, and other than people whizzing through it, or in a foreign language which is really, really hard to understand, or get the grips of what they're talking about, I'm going to go through it and do it step by step on this, making the cable and then flashing one of these so we can see what's involved with it. If you've already seen this and you know what I'm talking about, you don't have to watch it. This is just for people who want to know step by step what's involved with it and how to get it sorted out. I'm going to go through that. The ISPs on the Uno and on these boards are standard, so it's the standard pin configuration. So I'm going to make up the cable for it. So we can go from either these pins or we can go from the ISP one. I'll have a look and see which is going to be the best. And then I'll also show you all the instructions to doing this as well. They are on the guy's website, which I will put that up as well so you can see that. Alright, so I think what we will do is I'll clean this mess up, and what I will do is I'll show you the video, and then we'll get into making the cable that we need to make, and then we'll also get into the next part. Will be setting this up as an ISP and then flashing one of these units. Alright guys, okay guys, so here we are. This is the project that I'm doing. And this is the solder reflow plate made by After Earth Limited. They have a Discord group and that. The version I am doing is version 2.4, because at the time of doing it, the version 3, he didn't have the software done for it at the time. And the version 2.4 has the 328p 80 mega rather than the 4809, which is more common. But the 328p wasn't too bad, and there seemed to be quite a few around. I mean, that's what I went with. And that's this one here. The bottom one, as you can see, is as identical specifications as the top one. It's just that it's using the different 80 mega processor on it. So it's up to you which way you want to go. I haven't priced up these ones because I didn't worry without knowing when the software was going to be released, and if I was going to make a pile of boards and it was going to sit for 3 months before I could get it there. So if you want to, you can go to this web page. I will put a link in this video for you, and you can download the Gerbers and make your own ones if you want. There's the 2 different boards are in here. You can go into either of these boards. If you go into the 2.4, I don't know if the 3 has it, but you go into the 2.4 and it has all the information about building the stock board, designing the board, and programming the board, which is what I'm going to be going through. Programming the board to get it to work. The version 3, let's have a look. Hasn't had any recent updates. Well, he has got the information here, but I know if I looked into this, it said he didn't have the software for version 3 at this stage. So that's why I went with the 2.4. But as you can see, they have a Discord group. You can join up to there and talk to them on there, and you can probably pick it up from there. Other than that, he goes through the information about why he did this and his experiences with it. He has a YouTube channel with this on. So if you actually did a search on YouTube for the solder reflow plate and look for his name, After Earth Limited, it'll come up with his video, and it takes you through why he did it as well, why he decided to rebuild this. He does have an option here where you can go on and buy them pre-made in the UK, but with shipping, etc., that's why I found it was cheaper for me to go through something like JLC PCB or PCB Way and get them made for me and send here. And as I said, I wanted something I knew was going to work, not something I was going to put together myself and then find out something's not working or I've damaged a component, and I didn't want to go down that track. So this is what it's all about, and what we're going to do is we'll go back into these boards, and we're going to go into here, and we're going to go into the programming, because we don't know how to do the other parts, because it's already been made for us. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through all this information here, and you look at it and think, that's pretty simple. But if you don't have an ISP programmer, or one of those programmers to do this sort of stuff, then you're going to get caught. The other thing is the AT Tinies that are on these boards, there's no clock on the board. So you have to do it through something that has a clock to be able to program them. And that's why we're doing it through the way he's done here. And I'm going to set up a Arduino, a couple of those Unos I've got, set one of those up as an ISP programmer, and then put it onto the ISP connector on these boards, on these Hot-Plate boards, and program them that way. And then once it's all done and it's all working properly, we'll hook it up to my bench power supply and set it up for 12 volts 5 amps, which it will do easy enough, and we'll give it a go and see how it works. I think you'll be quite pleased with these. And if you want to get into how SMD works, these are a cheap way to do it. The only thing you'll need to buy rather than standard solder is you'll have to get some solder paste. There are two types. There's a low melt solder paste and a normal melt. The low melt's about 140 degrees, 130 something. The next one up's about 170, 180 degrees. Now these boards will go up to 200 degrees or more. Doing it a lot of times over a long period, I don't know how long the copper tracks will last for, going to those sort of temperatures, but the board will handle those temperatures, that could being the PC board. So I mean, for short runs or small amounts, like if you're doing PCB Way boards, little boards, and you want to do them yourself rather than paying the cost of them to do them, yeah, you can do these yourself and get your own solder paste. And when you do them, so if you order your boards from PCB Way or JLPCB and you want to do the surface mount stuff yourself, order yourself a stencil at the same time as your boards, and that gives you a thin metal stencil with the holes cut out where your solder paste will go through onto the board, so it's made to sit on top of your board. And you can make a little jig up so that you can put it in and it will sit exactly where you want it to. You can 3D print one if you want, or make up a little adjustable clamp of some sort that you can put it on, squeegee on your solder paste, take your metal piece off, and then you can actually put your components on and then sit it on your heating pad and let it do the work for you. So the only thing you need to make your mind up on is, do you want lower melt or higher melt solder? It comes down to a temperature thing. But anyway, what we're going to do is we'll go right back to the very beginning, and we'll go to the Arduino website to set the Arduino up to be an ISP programmer. Now it says he used version 1.8.19. I think I'm running 2 point something, so I don't think it really matters. A lot of it is going through the steps. Alright guys, hopefully you're still with me and you want to get on with this. So grab yourself a drink, something to snack on if you want to, and a comfy chair, and let's get on with it. Hey guys, welcome back. Well, we're just on the Arduino webpage, and this is the one about doing the ISP and the Arduino bootloaders. So if we go back, in his reflow documentation, if you look down in the program part here, he's got a bit here about setting up an Arduino as an ISP with the sketches and that, and how to connect the pins. So down in here, we just click on that, and it will take us through to the right page here on the Arduino as an ISP or as Arduino as bootloaders. So this is what we want to go into. we want to look in here and scroll down, and this is what we want to do. We want to use the Arduino as an ISP. And we can read through this pretty easy. We're using it to program 80 mega microcontrollers that are not on an Arduino board. So these are on other boards that we want to program that don't have a clock or anything along those lines. We need to install a couple of extra libraries, as I was saying, because it doesn't have a clock or any supporting hardware on the board. We need to install the mini core additional boards to allow for programming the 80 mega 8-bit chips. Okay, what we have to do is we have to go into Files, Preferences, and then we copy this link here. Copy that link, and we'll paste it in a box that's in there. So we'll right click that and we'll go copy. Just standard copy, don't copy as a shortcut. And we'll minimize this, and we'll get rid of you too. We don't need that in the way. We'll bring up our Arduino software, which is still running. And so what we had to do is we had to go into File, Preferences, and down the very bottom here you'll see there's Additional Boards Manager URLs. So we click in here, we do a right click and paste, or a Control V if you're in Windows will do the same thing for you. So the keyboard shortcuts inside of Windows to copy something is Control C, and to paste it is Control V, V for Victor. Alright, and that'll put it in there. So once it's in there, you just go OK, and that saves it, so it'll be in there from then on. Alright, so we've got that done. Now we've got to do a couple of other things. We've got a couple, now that's telling the software where to go and look for these libraries we need to install. So we need to have a look and find out what they are. So we've done that. So we add the boards to the board manager by searching for the mini core in the Tools, Boards and Board Manager. Okay, so what we do is we go into here and we go into Tools. We come down to Board and we go into Board Manager. Now in the Board Manager we want to load in the mini tools. So M-I-N-I, and what was it called? Mini core. So it's the mini core we need, and that's the one we want, the mini core. So we install that. That's the latest version. Now this will have the libraries internally for it to install that we need. So this is just downloading it off the internet, so it's not going to take too long to do. So this gives us for our 80 mega 328p, PA, A's, B's, etc. So this is just installing all this software on for us. And depending on your internet speed, it will just depend on how long it takes. This is unfortunately running off a link, so it's a wireless link, so it is a little bit slower than it would be off a normal one. So once we've done that, then the next one is we've got to load libraries. And so the first library we need is the Adafruit GFX library. So we'll take a copy of that, and we'll go into Tools, Manage Libraries. So we go into Manage Libraries, and we wait for that for a second or two to actually pop up. And when that pops up, we do a search for the Adafruit library, and we add that. There we go. So that's what we want, and there we go. The Adafruit, that's the Adafruit GFX library, which is the one we want. So we go install on that, and install them all. And then there's another library we need to install. As I say, guys, I mean, yours will be a little bit quicker because you're not recording in the background as well. The next one is the Adafruit SSD 1306 library. Go copy, and we'll get rid of that, and then here we can put it up here, paste. There we go. Now there's more than one here. I'm not 100% sure if we need the whole lot, but it doesn't hurt putting them in. So I'll install that one. when it's finished I'll do the others as well. And that's one's to do with the OLEDs, and I think there's something else, so yeah. These are just for the screens. I think it's this one down here we need, but it doesn't hurt putting in these other libraries just to make sure. Last thing you want to do is do it and then get a compile error because you don't have the right library installed. So that's the third one. So those are all the 1306 libraries that are on here. These are all the latest ones because it gets pulled off the Arduino website. So these will all be the latest libraries. I probably do need to look at updating my copy of the Arduino as well, software. Right, so those are all on there, and those are all done. Now if we come back to here, what we're looking at, so we've done all those. Now, we're to the point now where we're going to program this. So we need to connect the programmer to the ICSP headers on the solder reflow board. And this can be any supported USB ISP. So now before we do that, we do have to make sure that we set up the Nano as an SPI. So to do that, we go into File. Into File, we go to Examples. And in Examples, if we look down, number 11 is set the Arduino to an ISP. So go into here, and so we select that file. And that'll open a SketchUp, which we need to install to get the Arduino Nano as an ISP controller to be able to program these chips. So with this in here, what we do is then we hit the upload button, which is this little arrow here, and once we do that, it'll actually program and install the software on the Uno. Now we do that without the other board plugged in, so it doesn't try to program that board as well. So we do that. What we do is now do upload, and then this will compile the sketch, and once it's finished compiling the sketch, it will then upload the sketch or the Uno, and then this will set it up as an ISP. Okay, I'm just going to double check the serial port then. Check what port we're on. COM6, I'm pretty sure it's on COM6. So I'll just double check to see what COM ports you are running under Windows. If you go into your settings, this is on Windows 10, guys. Sorry, I don't do Mac or Linux. So, but if you go into your settings and then go to devices, and then generally under devices, it'll list them all up. And this is our serial port here, because if I unplug it, it disappears. So this is our right port. So if I plug it back in, it should come back up, and it does. So that is our serial port 6. So what we can do is just go back in and just double check it is set for serial port 6, which it is, yeah. Okay, so get board info, it's unknown board, any sketch to obtain it. Okay, so that's fine. So why it's not working, we might have to close that other one down in the background. I know what the problem was. So this wasn't set up for the 80 mega. This was actually set up for the Uno, sorry. This was set up for just the chip. That's why it had an issue with it. To set this up, you need to go into Tools, into Boards, and under Board Manager, you need to make sure it's set to the Uno to be able to flash the software. So we do that, we click onto Uno, and it is on COM6. Yes, it is. With here, we have the file loaded from Files, Examples, number 11, Arduino ISP. It's the one we want. We know it's on port 6, so let's go upload, and now this should compile and then upload onto the Uno. And there we go. So that's compiled. So that sets that Uno up as an ISP programmer. So now we've done that, what we need to do is to go in and we need to set it up so that we can program the chip on the other boards. So now we go into here and we go multi-core, ATmega 328, which is the chip we're going to program. Then we go into here and check, and we need to set it as 8 megahertz internal. If yours is not set to this, just go down here and set them. The BOD needs to be 2.7 volts. EEPROM needs to be retained. The LTO needs to be disabled. And the variant of chip we're doing is the 328P, the 328PA. That's the one we want to do. We want no bootloader checked. The baud rate just set to default. The COM port is what your COM port for your Arduino Uno was, because it goes through that to get to it. So once those are all set, we can just back out of here. And then what you're going to have to do is go to and load up the sketch file from the GitHub folder that you downloaded all your files into. So mine's in downloads, in the solder reflow, and then I go into the boards. Now, as I said, this one they haven't got the software for it yet. So we go into here, and we go into software, into the software folder, and this is the file we need to load into the Arduino software to program the chip. So if we go over to the Arduino file and we go open, I'll ask what file we want to open, and this is the one here. Because we were in here, it'll show it to us. We go open. So we don't need that other folder, we can close that. This is the one we've got. This is the software for the program, so we're finished with that now. We can close that. When we do that, we go into Tools, we go into Programmer, and we set it, the programmer, as an Arduino, as an ISP. Now this is setting our Arduino board up as an, so as again you go into Tools, Programmer, and set it to the Arduino as an ISP. Don't worry about the other bits behind it, just the standard one. That's what we want. Right, so we've got that done, so that piece is all set up. So the next thing would be to make up our cable so that we can now look at programming our 18 mega chip on our other board. Okay, so this is how we're going to do our board. It's going to be this one here. So this is the one with the programmer and the target. So we've got to make up a cable, and our cable is, I've got some ribbon cable here, so we could go colour for colour to what this is doing, if the colours line up, that is. So we're going to be using pins 10, 11, 12 and 13. Okay, so we're using 10, 11, 12 and 13, and then we're using 5 volts and ground, so 5 volts and ground. Okay, and so 10 is yellow, and that's blue. We might as well call 11 blue, and red, or it's orange I suppose, and green. And by going these colours, we keep to their wiring diagram, and we shouldn't go wrong, because then when we go to putting the header together, we'll make sure we get that right as well. And we should be able to do that. If we look up here, this is giving us the 6-pin header. So pin 2 is 5 volts, pin 6 is ground on this side, on the right hand side of this header. So then if we go back down to their diagram, we can see that that pin is 5 volts and that one is ground, and then the others must follow the same pattern as that header. So what we can do is we can put a pin on, a mark on this pin on the header as pin 1. So we can say, well, that's going to be our power pin, so that'll be our main pin. So we can make that so we know that's power. Put a red dot on it, put a white dot on it, something like that, just so you remember that's your power pin. What we'll do is we'll do that. So we'll switch back over to the camera, and we'll go about making our cable. Now you can make it as long as you want. It doesn't have to be a short cable. You know, I'm probably thinking maybe 300mm would be more than enough. You know, it doesn't need to be huge. But I'll see how I go, how we feel about it, eh? Right, guys, so we're back now. And what we're going to do is, I've got my glasses here. Now, this might be a bit tricky with the way my head is, because I've only got one ear open. But, as I said, we've got our cable here. So, I mean, we can go down and have a look. So, how many we got there? 2, 4... No, there's 6 on there. And that's got brown, red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. That's damn near what we need. The only difference is we have brown instead of black. So what I might do is just take this piece off the side, and I'll take one as long as I think I'm going to need, and cut it off, and we'll use that. I think that's going to be fine for our needs. So what I will do is I'll just grab a ruler, and yeah, it's a bit of advertising for a company that doesn't really is not around much nowadays. It was one my wife used to work for. She used to drive school buses and coaches and things like that. And the chappie who was local, he's actually pretty much closed that down now with the way the laws went with the council. So that's not around anymore. But what do you reckon? 200? We go 200. You reckon? That's going to give us quite a long cable. I think rather a bit too long than not long enough. I think that'll be fine. So I think we'll go 200 on that. So we're going to need that, and we're going to need some connectors and some plugs. So because we're going to go from the side pins of the Arduino, we're going to need the males and the females. So we're going to need 6 of each to go to where we need to go to. Now I thought this had... Oh, it doesn't. I thought this actually had the 3s in duals, but it doesn't. It only has them in singles. So what we might have to do is grab 2 singles, and we can even glue 2 singles together. I suppose if we wanted to, just make sure that the pins we're releasing them are on the outside. A bit of super glue on it, glue them together, and we'll have a double header. So I think that's fine. So we want 6 singles for our single pins. Or we could actually get away with a 4. And no, I'll do them as singles because if at a later date we use something different, we're not stuck with that 4-way header pin. So that's 2, 4, 6 of those. Okay. Because I was thinking that maybe you just now that's stuck. I was thinking that maybe just do a 4-way header and then 2 singles for the power and the 4-way connector on the other side of the board. But if we use something different, then at least we have individual pins to put in. And I've got the colour code that we're using, so that's not a biggie. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The other thing I found with doing these DuPonts, as I was doing with the Spectra video, with the video issue a little while ago, I found that with these cables, sometimes the thin wires would break away and then they'd be intermittent on connecting. So what I found is that if I tinned the wires before I crimped them into the connectors, I got a better connection and they were more durable. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to strip off the ends a little bit to the length I need them. I'm going to tin them and put solder on them, and then I'm going to crimp them. Because I found for me that worked a lot better. So I'm not cutting those very straight, am I? No, doesn't matter. So what I'll do, and you may have seen me in the other video too, what I do is with the cutters I just nip in between them at the very ends. And on ribbon cables, because they're what they call a tear type cable, that just gives you a starter to get your nails in it or a pair of pliers in it and just peel them up. Now I mean, if you want to, you can buy these ready made online. You can go and buy them, but I sort of think, well, why buy something and then have to wait for it to come in when I can make it myself? You know, and the thing is too, you can make it the size you want. Now what we did with the Arduino software, that's just the start of it. But I want to get the cable out of the way because we've got to go back to his instructions on some files we need to load back into that software. So I want to get this done out of the way. We can clear the bench. Then we can go into setting the software up completely, getting it ready, and then uploading a sketch into these boards. So we don't have to muck around. So that's why I want to do that. Alright, so we will get into here now and we will do these. So guys, so looking at our diagram, we have, I've just finished looking at that. So yellow is pin 10, blue is 11, orange is 12, and green is 13. And then we have our 5 volts and our ground, which is the brown and the red wires on this cable, which are marked on the Arduino as what pins they are. And so if we go by that, then looking at our pin configuration that we have on it, on the plug on our board, with the square on it, and we go that, and that. Pin 1 was over here, and 2 was 5 volts. So 5 volts was the inner right. So we know that's 5, and we know ground is at the end. So the way I want to do these is they have the little pins to flick them up so you can pop the connectors out. So I want them on the outside. So therefore, 5 volts will be in that first row. So I've just got to turn it around so I get it the right way. So that one's going to go into 5 volts. And then of course we know that 6, which will be at the end, will be ground. Because if you had a dual row, a 3x2 row one of these, they'll all be together and it'll be easier to do because all the connectors will be on the outside, they're lift up pins. So the next one would have been 4 would have been blue, Mosey. So that's got to go in between our 5 volts and our ground. So that one can go down into there. And that's clipped into there, so that's fine. And then these 3 here, so pin 1 is meso, which is orange. So where red is, the opposite side to that is actually pin 1. So orange will go there, which is fine. That's opposite red, which is our 5 volts. So we have orange in there. The next one is 3, which is the clock, which is green. That one goes in the next one. And yellow, which was 5, I think it was. Yep, which is 5. And that went in the last one. Okay. Right, and so now I've got that all made up. So there's my header pins there. Now I can glue those or I can tape those, whichever way I want to go with them. And that gives me my nice little double pin header to go onto the boards. So that would actually fit on there quite easily as well. So it fits on the 6-pin headers really nice. Now the boards do have pin 1, so we know that pin 1 is opposite power, which is the orange one, is pin 1. Just double check that. And yes, it is. Pin 1 is orange. So what I might do is I might get a little bit of super glue and I'll super glue those together and I'll put a bit of tape around them just to hold them, alright? And I'll just do that. Then what we can do is we can go back into setting up the software to program these. So I'll just clean this a little bit up and then I'll grab the glue and do that. Don't think I need any tape on that. That's actually a super glue, but it's a brush on super glue, so it's not as quick acting as the tubes, the little tubes you can get. It gives you a little bit of time to move around before it starts to bond, and it doesn't go hard like the tube stuff does. And as you see, it's like $3, but I mean, what, you spend $3 for 6 or 8 of the little tubes, and I don't know how long I've had this now, quite a while. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's more viable than the others. So that's not going to go anywhere now. It's actually glued up quite well. Right, it's not too far over line. It's only a fraction, but I think that'll be fine when it goes into the pins. So what we need to do is, I'll just have a quick look at this diagram, and I'll switch you back over to the desktop. So we'll just have a quick look at this diagram on how we have to wire up our cable. And since we did the same colour coding, we know how it goes in. Okay, and that's how we've got it in here. So we've got all our colours in the right holes. And our 5 volts here, the 3.3's up here. Just make sure you don't put it into that one, or you won't be able to program it. And there's 2 grounds next to each other. It doesn't matter which one you use. So that's all done. So that's all ready for us to plug into our board. And here we go, we're back at our board. And so remember, we need to know which is pin 1 and which is not. Now on the top of the board, he doesn't have any labelling. There's nothing on there at all. But if you look underneath, he has it labelled underneath. It would be nice to have 1 and 2 or 1 and 6 or something on the top of the board to know which is pin 1 and which is not. But we look underneath the board and 5 volts is over the back here at the left. So we make sure we put it on with our 5 volts over there. And with that plugged in, you actually heard Windows tell us that yes, it's actually found that board. So now what we'll do is we'll just zip back over to our desktop and start the program. So here we are. So now what we do is we do our compile and upload. So we'll do that. We're starting to compile a sketch. And then once it starts uploading, I'll switch it over and you can see that it's doing it. Okay, and now it's uploading it. So we'll switch over to the overhead and you can see the lights going. And that is telling you that it is programming it. So it'll take a few seconds to do that, and then when it's finished programming, the light will go out. And then this will be programmed. Once this is finished programming, I don't have a barrel jack to go into this. So I'm just going to solder a couple of tabs onto the base here to put the clips on. The other thing I have to put on is the OLED screen, and that goes into the 2 holes that are over the back there. It's only 4 pins to be soldered in, and what I might do is put a little bit of tape on the back here, a bit of insulation, the foam, it's self-adhesive tape, and put that on the back just to hold it off these chips. Put it in and solder it on, then we'll put the power on it and give it a test and see how it works. And at a later date I'll get back to you guys and let you know how it's gone, and also feedback from the other guys that have gotten them off me. But as you can see, that's now gone to a green light because it's finished programming. It's all done, and on the screen it says it's done as well. I'll just switch you back over to that. And as you can see down here, it says that it's done uploading. Alright, so that's all we need to do with the Arduino. So now what I'm going to do is unplug all this and move it out of the way, and as I said, I'll solder this in. I'll solder a couple of wires onto here so I can clip the power supply onto it. Set that to 12 volts, 5 amps, and we'll see how she goes. And you can actually see what it looks like. Right guys, so we're back again, and got the mounting tape. And this is just that foam backed mounting tape. So I just want something to stop it. If this drops down, it's not going to short. I mean, there's not a lot under there. There's resistors and a transistor and that, but still. But I'd rather do that. And then when it goes down, it's actually going to be quite nice on there. It's not going to actually hit anything, and it probably stops it wobbling around a bit as well. So anyway, I will put that there, and I'll put something down just so when I press on it, it keeps it flat. Everything out. We have that there and that there. I'll sit that on top of this tape so it keeps it up off the table. There's nothing underneath except for the screen that could short. But if we turn this on, and there we go. So I'll bring that up so you can see it. I'll actually zoom you in a little bit actually, shall I? So that's a really nice, and he's done well with this. It's got a nice font to it. So it comes up with a software version, the hardware release. It tells you what to do. The temperature is set to 140. So from there, I mean, I'm only pulling, that's what the temperature is at the moment. This has a temperature sensor here. So this picks up what temperature the board's at. So there's the up button and the down button, and that's to set the temperature up. Sorry. That's to set your temperature up, and that's to set your temperature down. So what we can do is we can go 150, 160, 170, 180, okay, and then what you do is you push both the buttons down together and let them go, and then it starts heating up. We'll just wait and see how we go. Yeah, just pulling a little bit of power. 0.7 amps, 0.9 amps. Starting to get a little bit warm. It's quite cool. It turns around and tells you the voltage and what the temperature is. So to my power supply, I probably went into overload with the power. But it was getting warm, so yeah, I'm not too sure if this power supply would go much over 2 amps even. It may be the limitation on my power supply, so yeah. But no, she's warming up really well. She goes back into the heating cycle again. So yeah, this is quite a cool little thing. I do think that these pins on the side here can be a bit of a pain getting to the buttons. So if you don't need them, which I don't think you do after you've set it up, you can always pull that out, desolder them and take them off. Or if you're going to put one in, put it on a 45. Yeah, I think my power supply is limited to 2 amps. And it's tripping out. That's getting warm. Up to here. It's getting a little warm for me fingers. Yeah, 2.5 amps and my power supply trips out. So yeah, but that was getting quite toasty, and it was getting quite toasty on my fingers. So yeah, I would call that a success, guys. That's definitely a success. So I do need something that's got a little bit more guts to it to heat this right up. But I mean, you can go on AliExpress. I mean, you have to order these separate from the PCB house that's making your board. So if you go on AliExpress and get these, you can pick up the some 5 amp 12 volt power supplies, and you get the bricks, the actual bricks, like a laptop one. You get a 12 volt 5 amp or 12 volt 8 amp, one of those. The minimum is 5 amps, so I suppose the higher amperage, the quicker it'll heat up. Up to you, but get one of those with the right size barrel jack, which is in the, usually still warm, in the description for the parts. Get the right size barrel jack one for it, and you'll be fine. If the barrel jacks are a different size, change it on your BOM listing when you're going to the fab house. If you're getting them to make it, get them to change it to the one you need. Other than that, buy a whole pile of these and just put the right one on. So I'm going to desolder these wires now, and put this one aside, and I'll assemble the others for the people that I've got to send them away to. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and watching me through this and listen to me prattle on and that. But I just think this is a neat little bit of kit which you might want some small boards. And I mean, you could put an Uno on this, the size of an Uno, to do it, to do surface mount soldering on it and do all these chips and that. And as he was saying in his, the reason he wanted to look at it also was that when you're putting clips and connectors and stuff, if you're doing very thin connectors and that sort of thing, you got to watch melting the plastic, and this way you don't have that issue. Alright, so guys, there we have another one. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and you found it a bit entertaining, if not watching me with my new turban. But I'm going to leave that one there, and hopefully we're going to have something interesting coming up here shortly. This one is just a bit of a weird one because of the accident and that, and I didn't want to get too much into it. I wanted to give myself some time to recoup a wee bit from this and get back into it. So, have a good day, have a good week, and until next time, guys, ciao.